drug trafficking, counterfeit goods, piracy, or even exporting workers abroad. It seems that North Korea is making money in a not-so-religiously correct way. Sit back and relax. Today we'll tell you how North Korea makes money. And no, it's not by exporting buns. North Korea is a major world power. At least that's what it claims. It has always wanted to reach its Asian counterparts, China and Japan, on the economic level. And power means money and wealth, and abundant money means, among other things, illicit activities. To get rich, North Korea does not hesitate to make drug trafficking one of its main activities, despite the fact that some people do not like it. It was in 1970, under the regime of Kim Jong-il, that North Korea began to manufacture, transport, and sell illegal drugs. With time, the state does not even want to keep the secret. It goes to serious things and begins to manufacture and export methamphetamines, a synthetic drug extremely addictive. Manufactured in factories specially dedicated to this, huge quantities of these narcotics are sold mainly in South Korea and Japan via small neighborhood traffickers. An excellent way for the country to bring in foreign currency and to feed the coffers of the Pyongyang regime. Korea manages to earn billions of dollars every year thanks to this juicy business. And this figure constitutes about 70 to 80% of the illegally harvested currency. Of course, North Korea is not happy with this situation, but as a purely communist state, the last thing that should bother it is that the rest of the world is against it. I'm surprised that Pyongyang has been able to finance its nuclear weapons program because of this. Kim Jong-un has always done whatever he wanted in his country. That's no secret. So it is not a few illicit activities that will stand in his way. To ensure a solid income for the country, the leader encourages cybercrime. Yes, it may sound shocking to you, but not to him. Basically, he doesn't hesitate to help himself to other people's pockets by using his most formidable weapon, computer geniuses. Jong-un recruits for this, the cream of the hackers, among the best students of the universities of the country. 1,600 to 6,000 hackers are working on online racketeering programs or illegal gambling sites, small routine tricks. But their biggest coup were mainly the hacking of Sony Pictures Entertainment, the release of the WannaCry malware that infected 300,000 computers in 150 countries in 2017, and even more grandiose, a real masterstroke, the cyber breaking of the Central Bank of Bangladesh that allowed them to make the sum of $81 million. It is said that in 2016 and August 2019, North Korea would have earned more than $2 billion with these attacks on banks and cryptocurrencies. By the way, Kim Jong-un steals several $100 million worth of cryptocurrencies every year. And according to estimates, the country would have stolen $400 million in 2021 alone. And yes, it costs a lot to finance a nuclear and ballistic missile program. Open sky flights that make Kim Jong-un hated by 3/4 of the world, but also very feared. Be careful that we don't get him too excited. In any case, with the millions of dollars he makes from these activities, the leader has more than enough to calm down. Now that it is involved in narcotics and cybercrime without much hiding, North Korea has decided that it needs to line its pockets even more. And this time, it has taken advantage of its working class. Every year, thousands of employees are exported abroad, mainly to China, Russia, and the Middle East, to work in textile companies, construction sites, or in logging. All these companies are complicit with the state. Why complicit? Because quite simply, the employees work in disastrous conditions for 20 hours a day without receiving a salary or perhaps a derisory salary. Let's make a little guess. Who pockets the rest and who gets the lion's share? Not hard to guess. Kim Jong-un pours the salaries to entities controlled by the power. This represents a substantial income of up to $200 million for the regime. Something that makes the UN cringe, accusing North Korea of abusing its own people. But do you think Kim Jong-un trusts what he is accused of? The most important thing is that the country's coffers are full, no matter how much damage it causes. After the Korean War, North Korea's economy was in a state of agony. This prompted the then leader to seek help from other communist countries to get back on his feet. Thus, the country began to scrape money from several states of the communist bloc, namely the USSR, China, Bulgaria, and the German Democratic Republic. This allowed the country to rebuild itself and at the same time overtake South Korea in economic terms. North Korea took advantage of the generosity of its socialist countries and the lull between them to subtly extract economic concessions from China and the Soviet Union. Thus, the country was able to pull itself up by its bootstraps in the 1960s and even became the strongest economy in Asia behind Japan, supported by the socialist republics, which supplied themselves with North Korean steel, machine tools, and locomotives in exchange for oil and grain. The annual growth rate exceeded 25% in the 10 years following the Korean War. Even though the country's economy suffered a lot, it is to be believed that North Korea was able to hang on to the right rope and save itself. After the Korean War, North Korea decided to roll up its sleeves and build up its own wealth. So, the country started to manufacture and export weapons. Thus, in 1980, North Korea was recognized as a legal arms dealer mainly for third world countries, which is logical. It sold weapons that were technically unsophisticated but reliable and cheap. In fact, during the Iran-Iraq War, it supplied 90% of its weapons to its Iranian allies and pocketed $4 billion. Then, the country experienced the great expansion of nuclear and anti-missile technologies. In 2001, the sale of missiles amounted to $560 million. In 2006, the country conducted nuclear weapons and ballistic missile tests in some countries, including Burma, Syria, and Iran. To sanction it, the UN decided to ban or at least limit the export of various types of weapons, including small arms. A sanction that strongly displeased North Korea, which is not the type to comply with orders. The state has finally built up an extensive and complex network of arms sales, using mainly front companies. As a result, the acquisition, marketing, and sale of arms and military equipment and arms exports have become one of Korea's main sources of foreign exchange, despite bans. They bring in about $100 million a year, in addition to the huge sums earned by the export of other products such as coal, iron ore, sand, and gravel, as well as chemical products, soybean oil, seed products, and textiles, which the country sells, of course, legally. North Korea relies heavily on its tourism to feed its coffers. It is a large economic sector, despite the fact that it is highly regulated. To attract tourists each year, North Korea touts its natural scenery and rich historical past, the remains of which are listed as a UNESCO heritage site. Since coming to power, Kim Jong-un has made tourism a strength for the country by adopting a different attitude than his predecessors. He has invested capital in tourism projects, allowed access to formerly forbidden areas, encouraged attractions and activities for tourism, etc. In 2019, 350,000 Chinese and about 5,000 Westerners are said to have visited North Korea, which has largely contributed to bringing foreign currency into the country. Even if the latter is suffering because of economic sanctions of the international community, the tourism sector is not affected. On the contrary, it also helps to influence foreign opinion on the country, which is also a member of the World Tourism Organization since 1987. As what, they do not do everything in an illegal way. It should not be believed. After the ballistic and nuclear tests carried out by North Korea and the UN Security Council adopted heavy sanctions against the country, banning its textile exports and reducing its oil supplies, Kim Jong-un decided not to let himself be taken in. It is impossible for North Korea to give up textile exports, which alone represent an important source of foreign currency. Among the collaborating countries, China provides the raw material, which is transformed into clothing or luxury products in North Korean factories with cheap labor. Indeed, the textile industry is one of North Korea's main exports, with revenues of nearly $750 million. The country is used to exporting to China and Russia. This sanction, if it remains applicable, will put pressure on the North Korean state in the long term. This will certainly make their leader react, as he must not close one of his main taps of incoming currency. We have already told you about drug trafficking, which brings staggering amounts of money to the state. The North Korean regime has thought of another kind of trafficking. The country has started to traffic in counterfeit goods, cigarettes, and counterfeit money, as well as in prohibited goods such as rhinoceros horns, illicit minerals, and conflict diamonds. The country goes even further, exporting counterfeit Viagra pills. And all of this trafficking is managed by Division 39, a secret North Korean government organization that uses military officials, bureaucrats, and members of the diplomatic corps to organize the manufacture and the distribution of criminal products, and to oversee all these illegal activities. Well, since we're talking about it today, it's no secret that North Korea traffics in everything that can be trafficked, and it's commonplace there. So it is a bit burned out, but since all this brings in a lot of money, I doubt very much that the regime cares about what the whole planet thinks. Earlier, we talked about the North Korean workers that the state sends as slaves to other countries to make money on their backs. Well, North Korea still decided to keep a small part of its employees for itself. Before 2016, the country had an industrial zone with an area of 66 square kilometers near the border with the South. This zone was home to dozens of South Korean companies employing 50,000 workers from the north. You might think that's generous of him, but no. There again, Pyongyang was exploiting his workers by confiscating their wages, or at least a good part of them, which made him an annual income of about $100 million. In February 2016, following several political disputes between the two Koreas, Pyongyang ordered the South Koreans to leave Kaesong, and the North Korean troops took control of the area. The South Koreans had no choice but to leave the 120 companies and assets estimated at $663 million. Surely, you must believe that this put a small dent in the North Korean wallet, but no. The country decided in 2017 to reopen, of course without the agreement of the South Koreans, 19 textile factories in the area, pocketing all the earnings from their activities. North Korea continues to exploit its own workers in an abusive manner, making them work in factories that do not belong to it and pocketing all the money. That's what we call art. So what do you think of what was said in this video? Tell us what you think in the comments. I'll be curious to know what you think about North Korea's economy. Don't forget to check out our other videos on North Korea. Give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell to receive all the notifications and not miss anything from our upcoming content.